Um, the revolution you're not watching. Why Black women's local leadership is the real power move. Welcome to Soft Girl Era, the sacred space where strong Black women unlearn survival, rediscover softness, and reclaim the joy, rest, and freedom they deserve without guilt, without apology, and without explanation. I'm your host, LeAnne Dolce, pronounced Dolce, like sweet softness whispered in French. I'm your guide from burnout to boundaries, from doing to being, from strong to soft, and loving every second of it. Today, I want to share something with you that came from a powerful conversation I had with Aisha Smith, a voice that's helping us see leadership, power, and transformation in a whole new light. Aisha Smith is making the world a better place by challenging us to look beyond the headlines, beyond the symbolic wins, and into the quiet revolutionary work happening in our own backyards. Work that's reshaping how Black women lead, how Black professionals thrive, and how entire communities are being transformed from the inside out. Aisha is helping us understand that the most profound shifts in economic power and equity aren't happening where we've been trained to look. They're happening in the place we've been taught to overlook. Now, here's what I want you to sit with for a moment. When we think about Black women breaking barriers, we think about the big stages, the corner offices, the national news cycles. We think about representation. And yes, representation matters. But what Aisha Smith helped me see, and what I want to share with you today, is this: the real revolution isn't happening on those stages. It's happening in city halls. It's happening in local government offices. It's happening in the decisions about small business loans, workforce training programs, and who gets city contracts. It's happening in the places where economic power is actually distributed, where policies are written, where resources are allocated, and where the day to day lives of Black professionals and entrepreneurs are directly impacted. This is the shift we're not talking about enough. We're so focused on seeing Black women in visible leadership roles that we're missing the deeper transformation. Black women aren't just breaking glass ceilings anymore, they're redesigning the entire structure. They're not just sitting at the table, they're deciding what's on the menu, who gets fed, and how the resources are shared. They're not waiting for permission, they're taking authority, and they're using that authority to transform the economic landscape for people who have been locked out for generations. Let me paint you a picture. Let me tell you about Mary Sheffield. In 2025, Mary Sheffield became the first woman and the first Black woman elected mayor of Detroit. Now, Detroit is a city with deep racial and economic divides, a city that has seen its share of struggle, a city where inequity in housing, job access, and economic opportunity has been entrenched for generations. Mary Sheffield didn't just step into that role to make history, she stepped in to make change. Real, tangible, everyday change. The kind of change that shows up in a small business owner finally getting approved for a loan. The kind of change that shows up in a family finding affordable housing. The kind of change that shows up in a neighborhood finally getting the city services it's been asking for decades. Sheffield started as the youngest city council member, building her reputation as a housing advocate and a community organizer. She wasn't chasing titles, she was chasing impact. She was in the community, listening, learning, organizing, advocating. She understood that real power isn't about the title on your business card. It's about the decisions you get to make and the people those decisions impact. And when she became mayor, she prioritized affordable housing. She expanded small business capital specifically for Black entrepreneurs. She implemented a rigorous equity lens on city contracts and spending. What does that mean? It means she made sure that the money flowing through the city, the opportunities being created, the jobs being filled, were reaching the people who had been left out for far too long. It means she looked at every contract, every grant, every opportunity, and asked who benefits, who's been excluded. How do we change that? And then she did the work to change it. The outcome: increased access to business loans for Black owned businesses, improved city services in underserved neighborhoods, greater trust in local government. Sheffield didn't just change Detroit's economic narrative, she set a precedent. She showed other cities what's possible when Black women have the authority to direct resources, when they have the power to make decisions that matter. She showed us that local leadership isn't small, it's where the most transformative work happens. Now let's talk about Dorcey Applyrs. In 2025, Dorcey Applyrs became the first Black mayor in Albany, New York's 300-year history. 300 years. Let that sink in. For 3 centuries, Albany had never seen a Black person lead that city. And when Applyrs won, she didn't just win, she won decisively. She ran on a platform of inclusive economic growth, focusing on neighborhood small businesses, fair housing, and removing barriers to workforce participation, barriers like childcare and transportation, the kinds of everyday obstacles that keep people from accessing opportunity, the kinds of obstacles that don't make headlines, but that determine whether someone can show up to work, whether they can start a business, whether they can build wealth. Pliers built her career as a public health and community advocate. She earned trust through grassroots engagement and policy expertise. She wasn't an outsider swooping in. She was deeply rooted in the community. She knew the people, she knew their struggles, she knew what they needed because she had been in the work, in the trenches for years. And when she took office, she launched new business incubators. She increased affordable housing units. She created pathways for minority contractors to access city contracts. She made city services more accessible. She didn't just talk about equity, she built the infrastructure for it. Pliers redefined what local government could do for Black professionals and business owners. She showed how policy, real policy, can close the racial wealth gap. She showed that when you remove the barriers, when you create the pathways, when you invest in people who have been overlooked, they don't just survive, they thrive. And when they thrive, entire communities thrive. And then there's Christal Watson. In 2025, Christal Watson became the first Black woman to lead the unified government of Wyandotte County and Kansas City, Kansas. Her campaign centered on economic equity. She faced persistent concerns over housing, infrastructure, and government transparency. She faced a legacy of limited access to capital and business opportunities for Black professionals. And she didn't shy away from those challenges, she leaned into them. She said, yes, these are the problems, and here's how we're going to solve them. Watson focused on transparency in city spending. She prioritized minority owned business contracts. She expanded entrepreneurship support for BIPOC and immigrant communities. She understood that economic equity isn't just about giving people a seat at the table, it's about making sure they have access to the resources they need to build their own tables. It's about making sure that when opportunities arise, they're not just going to the same people who've always had access. It's about opening doors that have been closed for far too long. The outcomes: increased minority participation in city contracts, improved infrastructure in underserved neighborhoods, stronger support networks for local entrepreneurs. Watson set a new standard for inclusive governance. She made local government an ally for Black professionals and entrepreneurs, not an obstacle. She showed that government can be responsive, that it can be accountable, that it can work for everyone, not just the people who've always had power. Now, here's what I want you to understand: Mary Sheffield, Dorcey Applyrs, Christal Watson, these women aren't anomalies. They're not exceptions, they're part of a movement, a quiet, powerful, transformative movement of Black women who are stepping into local leadership and using that power to reshape economic structures, to advocate for practical equity, and to address the financial bottlenecks that impact daily life for Black professionals and entrepreneurs. They're not waiting for someone to hand them a microphone. They're building their own platforms. They're not asking for a seat at the table. They're building new tables. This is the insight Aisha Smith shared with me, and it's the insight I want to leave you with today. True empowerment doesn't just come from visibility, it comes from authority. It comes from having the power to direct resources. It comes from being in the room where decisions are made about small business grants, workforce training, equitable city contracts, the decisions that directly affect economic mobility. It comes from being able to say, this is how we're going to allocate these funds. This is who we're going to invest in. This is how we're going to create opportunity, and then doing it. But here's the tension. Even with this progress, even with these incredible women leading, structural barriers persist. Black women still face disproportionate obstacles in accessing capital. They still face challenges advancing into senior leadership. They still face threats to workplace protections, especially in the face of recent anti DEI rollbacks and economic downturns. Representation matters, but representation alone isn't enough. Lasting impact comes when Black women leaders have the authority to direct resources toward their communities, when they can make decisions that create real measurable change, when they can look at a system that's been designed to exclude and say, we're redesigning this, we're building something better. So, what does this have to do with your soft girl era? What does this have to do with learning to be soft in a world that taught you survival? Everything. Because what Mary Sheffield, Dorcey Applyrs, and Christal Watson are doing, what Aisha Smith is helping us see, is that softness and power are not opposites. Softness is not weakness. Softness is not passivity. Softness is the radical act of choosing yourself, of setting boundaries, of saying no to what doesn't serve you, and of saying yes to what does. Softness is the courage to lead with authenticity, to prioritize your community, to make decisions rooted in care and equity, not just survival and hustle. These women are redefining strength. They're showing us that you don't have to wear the superwoman cape to make an impact. You don't have to sacrifice your peace, your joy, your rest to lead. You can lead from a place of groundedness. You can lead from a place of softness. You can lead from a place of self trust and radical joy. And when you do, you create space for others to do the same. You create a model of leadership that doesn't burn people out. You create a model of leadership that sustains, that nourishes, that uplifts. This is the lesson. This is the takeaway. Black women are not just breaking barriers, they're reshaping the entire landscape. They're creating new pathways, new opportunities, new definitions of what leadership looks like. And they're doing it without apology, without explanation, and without waiting for permission. They're doing it because they understand that the communities they serve can't wait. They're doing it because they understand that representation without resources is just a photo op. They're doing it because they know that real change happens when you have the authority to make decisions and the courage to make them differently. Mary Sheffield, Dorcey Applyrs, Christal Watson, they're showing us what's possible when Black women lead with authority, with authenticity, with a commitment to equity and community. Aisha Smith is helping us see that the real transformation isn't just about breaking glass ceilings. It's about redesigning the entire structure so that everyone has access, everyone has opportunity, everyone has a seat at the table. It's about building systems that work for everyone, not just the people who've always had power. It's about creating a world where economic opportunity isn't determined by your zip code or the color of your skin. It's about making sure that when we talk about the American dream, it's actually accessible to everyone. And here's what I need you to hear: this isn't just their work, this is our work. This revolution, this transformation, it doesn't just belong to the women in City Hall. It belongs to every single one of us. It belongs to you. Because every time you choose to support a Black owned business, you're part of this revolution. Every time you advocate for equitable policies in your workplace, you're part of this transformation. Every time you amplify a Black woman's voice, you're contributing to this movement. Every time you set a boundary, every time you prioritize your peace, every time you choose to lead from a place of softness and authenticity, you're showing others what's possible. So here's my challenge to you: stop waiting for someone else to create the change you want to see. Stop waiting for permission to use your influence. Stop waiting for the perfect moment to step into your power. The revolution is happening right now. And it needs you. It needs your voice. It needs your courage. It needs your commitment. It needs you to look at your own sphere of influence, whether that's your business, your workplace, your community, your family, and ask, how can I create the kind of practical, everyday change that empowers others and opens doors for those who have been historically overlooked? What's one step you can take this week? Maybe it's mentoring a young Black professional. Maybe it's advocating for equitable hiring practices. Maybe it's investing in a Black woman owned business. Maybe it's speaking up in a meeting when you see inequity. Maybe it's simply choosing to lead from a place of softness, authenticity, and care, showing others that you don't have to sacrifice yourself to make an impact. Because here's the truth: the revolution isn't just happening in city halls, it's happening in your living room, it's happening in your boardroom, it's happening in your heart. It's happening every time you choose to release the cape, to set a boundary, to prioritize your peace, to reclaim your joy. It's happening every time you choose to be soft in a world that taught you survival. It's happening every time you choose yourself. You are part of this transformation. You are part of this movement. You are part of this revolution. So take a breath, release the cape, step into your softness, and lead from that place. Lead from a place of rest, of joy, of self trust, of radical authenticity, because that's where the real power is. That's where the real change happens. That's where your revolution begins. Not someday, not when you're ready, right now, today, in this moment, with the next decision you make, with the next boundary you set, with the next time you choose you. The world is waiting for your leadership, not the leadership that burns you out, not the leadership that requires you to sacrifice everything, but the leadership that comes from your softness, your authenticity, your unwavering commitment to yourself and your community. That's the leadership that changes everything. That's the leadership that transforms cities, economies, and lives. That's the leadership the world needs right now. So go, lead, transform. And remember, your soft girl era isn't just about you choosing yourself, it's about you showing others that they can choose themselves too. It's about you creating a ripple effect of transformation that reaches far beyond what you can see. It's about you being part of the revolution that's reshaping what power looks like, what leadership looks like, what strength looks like. The revolution is here and it's waiting for you to step in.